thing you might notice on the final version of this, we have this kind of typer effect with random text in here. But this random text actually runs twice as quick as the letters get added in. So we have two different intervals running on this final project. We don't need to, of course, we could just have it as one single interval and have this random text added to the end, but this makes it feel more like a typer effect. So I'm adding two different intervals, almost like two different clocks are running to add this content. Now we're not going to add the random one in here just yet. What we're going to do is create this other interval that we can add stuff to. Now again, I'm just going to quickly clean up my code a little bit, and in my run random, again this runs from here to here. Notice this yellow box kind of running from here to here. I've got my add interval that runs from here to here, and my if that just runs there. Outside of this, but still within run random, I'm going to add in another interval. So this interval I'm going to call constant, and this one is the random interval. Here what I'm going to do is make this equal to something that looks fairly similar to before. This is going to be equal to set interval, and then we're going to run this. Set interval, part of JavaScript again. How does it work? Well, it adds two things. It adds something to do and how long do we run it on. Now we don't have anything to pass to this again, so I'm going to say round brackets again goes to curly brackets. And again, I'd like to just add in how long this is at the end, so I'm going to add in a comma. And how long? Well, this is twice the speed as the first one, which is 100. So it needs to run twice as quick, 50 milliseconds. And just like before, I like to open up my curly brackets just to make things easier to read. And here what I want to do is basically add some more content to the end. Now at the moment, all my content is being kept just within here. So what I actually want to do is make my content available to this wider box. So notice this yellow box is lit up. At the moment, my original content is just lit up in here. I can't access this so far. So what I'm going to do is add one new thing. Here what I'm going to do is have a constant original content with a let of the new content. And the new content to start with is going to be empty, of course. But what I'm going to do is update my new content by working out what this is. So this is going to change a little bit. Instead, we're not going to change the tag HTML. We're going to change the new content. So why have I done it this way? Because I want to kind of add a number to this every single time, I then want to add extra random elements to this new content within random interval. So really it's random interval that is changing the content, because on this final one, we have this random interval changing every single time. It's only every 100 milliseconds that I'm adding the final content to this. So new content is going to be something that looks like D and O and W and N, kind of increasing, but then with the new content, we want to add some randomness to the end of this. So for now, what we're going to say is instead, random interval is just going to update the content. So I'm going to say tag.inner.html is equal to the new content. So I've moved this from here. So basically this is being updated here, which means that all of this stuff can be used. So now what we should see is the same thing as before. It's just not really changed. But what I can do is start adding things to the end of here. So for instance, at the end of new content, I could just add like some dots, for instance. So for now, what I'm going to say is plus in quotes, ... So what we should see is if we go back to the page, ... Notice it's stopped at the right place. It isn't just continuing as well. But what we want to do is instead of these dots, almost fill in how many spaces we have left. How many spaces do we have left? Well, we know how long the original string is. We know how long the new content is. We just need to add some dots to the end of this. So what we're going to do within random interval is fill in the dots for now. So I'm going to remove plus ... And then in here, what I'm going to add in is a for loop. So I've got these two things. I know how long they are, and I can work out how big that difference is. So I'm going to add in a for loop for round brackets, curly brackets. So just like in our previous projects, what we said was let's call it I for now, because I is just a random letter. It's not X or Y. It could be just I. This is going to be equal to 0. Then where does this end? Well, for now, I'm going to make it I is less than 0 because it doesn't run. It's going to fill in these numbers in a second. What is the step? Well, we want to make I equal to the previous I plus 1. So at the moment, this loop isn't going to run at all. So if we open this up and write any code in here, it's not going to do anything. What we want to do is kind of fill the rest of this tag up with this random content in the end. But what does this start and end look like? What we want this to be is the new content length of the string to go up to the original content. So we want to fill the end of the new content to how long original content is going to be. So instead of this being 0, what we're going to put to begin with is how long is new content? New content dot length. And we want this to go up to the original content's length. So this is going to be the original content's dot length. So this is quite long, this kind of line of code. Let's go with it for now. So now what we want to do is some letters or some kind of randomness in here. For now, what we're going to do is just a dot. It's kind of almost like a typo effect. So what we're going to say here is essentially tag.inner HTML is equal to the current tags.html, which is currently new content, plus a dot on the end. So add a dot on the end. So what we should see now is if we go back to the page and refresh, this kind of fills in and stops. And they've all kind of done it at the same time. We'll worry about that a little bit later. And again, what we could do is start adding some randomness in here a little bit later. So maybe it could be an underscore. So it looks like that. Looks pretty cool. But what we actually want to do is add randomness to this. We'll talk about that in the next video.